King, if you'll read the prepared announcement and call the roll, please.
October 25th, 2016. Please be advised, this meeting is being taped for video and audio broadcast. Assisted listening devices are available. Mr. Bonifant.
Here.
Mr. Porcello.
Here.
Mr. Hempstead.
Here.
Mr. Kimmel.
Here.
Mr. Sacchinelli.
Here.
Ms. Melendez.
Here.
Mr. Sarasis.
Present.
Ms. Bowman.
Here.
Mr. Sims.
Present.
Mr. Kites.
Here.
Ms. Maggio. Mr. DePalma. Ms. O'Toole Gianderco.
Here.
Mr. Igneri.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
13 present. You have a quorum.
13 present, we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes from the regular meeting of October 11th, 2016. I'm sorry? Oh, you're moving. Mr. Igneri moves. Any corrections, deletions, additions?
None abstain.
Okay, Mr. Bonifant.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 7 of 8 of the minutes, if you will refer to that, we're in the middle of the page, Mr. Bonifant moved to table the item, and there was and they vote, it's noted how that vote went to table, but the actual motion is not recorded in here on how the item was voted on for the Bates Court. You'll see that if you, the motion to table failed, but the actual motion is not recorded on how that went.
Down below it does, no?
I'm sorry, didn't I?
Motion to
I
table
thought
failed?
I made the motion to table it, and I thought it did.
A motion to table failed with 4 votes in favor. Down below that.
Bates Court.
Oh, Bates Court, I'm sorry, thank you,
The
Mr.
Bates
Hempstead.
Court-
What he's saying is that the motion that it passed is not in the minutes.
Just the words are not there. It happened, but
Yeah, but there was a vote, and it was a roll call vote, and some people voted yes, and some people voted no, and that's not recorded.
The action.
It is, you know?
that's the motion to table.
Yeah.
Failed. And then the next page, there should be a motion.
Well, you're going on to page 8 then?
Yeah, but it's not on page 8, how the vote went. On the abandonment, or whatever Mr. Capola called it for Bates Court, it was listed as abandonment, but you had a fancier word for it.
Or discontinue.
Yeah, that's sort of, but
Which is a statutory process.
that's,
Discontinue.
that doesn't matter, but I'm just saying it, that actual vote is not recorded in the minutes. So there you go.
The master plan.
Okay, any further, Mr. Hempstead?
I'm just wondering, would it be simple just to table minutes to the next meeting so we can get the corrected version? I think it just simplifies life.
May I? May I say something?
Wait a minute.
We have it in the records in the city clerk's office. If you'd like to have these minutes come back to you, we can do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, just table the next.
Okay.
Correct. I'm sorry.
Further discussion.
Minutes to the next meeting to provide for a corrected version.
So does that mean that Mr. Hempstead is making a motion to table this until the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
You help me, I'll
So we
help
can
you.
get, so we can get the corrected version.
okay. A motion to table the minutes is not debatable. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We will bring this up at the next meeting with the corrected version.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, public participation.
Mr. Stuart Wells.
You guys probably know me by now. Stuart Wells, the 24 West Norwalk Road. Matter of our poll workers and staff pay is on the agenda. I don't think it's all that controversial. I just wanted to report that so far this year, we've had 7,670 new voters, 4,150 have moved out, so we've got a net increase of 3,500 voters, and an additional 7,000 changes. Just in the last month, we've had 1,000 new voters. They're coming in at the rate of 200 a day of changes in and out. That's a lot. That's a 40% turnover in the voter rolls in terms of changes in a year, which is usually you expect maybe 10%. So our people have been working real hard, so we hope you remember that in voting on this. It's been a busy time with the motor vehicle department changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wells.
Ms. Karen Lyons?
Karen Doyle Lyons, 58 Spring Hill, Norwalk, Connecticut, one of the registrar of voters for the city of Norwalk. Again, thank you. I know Common Council, you give a lot of time and a lot of effort to all of your decisions. This decision to assist our part-time help is very important to our office. Again, they handle so many legal documents every single day. Presidential years are extremely busy, as Stuart has said. Almost 200 applicants since October 1st. That's 200 a day. And our staff deserves the increase, and I hope you'll consider that. Our poll workers haven't had an increase since 2008. They work from 5 in the morning until at least 8 o'clock at night, and then they do the cleanup. Some of our poll workers are here even till midnight, 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Our moderators, while we're getting the figures. I would really hope that you would consider an increase for these very, very special and people who work for our democracy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Those are the only two people signed up to address the council. Is anybody that wishes to address the council at this time? Seeing none, I'll close the public participation section. Under resignations and appointments, we're sad to accept the resignation of Torney Astrom, chairperson of the Planning Commission, who sent a very nice letter indicating that after 14 years as a volunteer on the Planning Commission and numerous special commissions and task forces, I herewith wish to confirm my resignation of earlier this evening as a member of the chairman of the Norwalk Planning Commission. He's enjoyed the opportunity to get to work and know with many dedicated city employees, especially appreciated the camaraderie with fellow commissioners as well as the planning and zoning staff. And we accept it with regrets, and we did send him a nice letter thanking him for his years of service. Under my remarks, I have them here someplace. I got them right here.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I believe it was Mr. Hempstead has
Mr.
something.
Hempstead.
If you allow me, I publicly want to thank Torgny. I mean, there's somebody over the years who really was dedicated to what he did, but I call him kind of a silent leader as a chairperson on that. He never used a disparaging word, never. He was always trying to move on forward. I really do appreciate his service to the community. No, that's all. Sorry.
No, thank you. That's very appropriate. And if anybody else wishes to make a comment, I apologize. I didn't reach out and ask, but a lot of people have interacted with Torney over the years, and I think they find him to be extremely professional. Any further comments? Seeing none, thank you. So today, we're very honored for the second year in a row to have the 2016 nationalization ceremonies at our own Lockwood Matthews Mansion. We swore in approximately 20 new citizens, welcoming them as citizens of the United States from 13 different countries: Canada, Colombia, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Haiti, Indonesia, Ireland, Jamaica, Mexico, Pakistan, Peru, and Venezuela. It was a very moving ceremony, and you could see by the smiles on their faces that they were extremely proud, extremely honored to be citizens of the greatest country in the world, and it was a wonderful ceremony. Tomorrow, Wednesday, October 26th, from 5:30 to 8 p.m., the Board of Education will be holding a community discussion of the school facilities master plan. It will begin with a reception, followed by the meeting. The public is invited to participate. It will take place at 11 Ingalls Avenue, the former Nathaniel Ely School. I would encourage anybody with questions, anybody with concerns, to be there tomorrow night. This is something that is going to impact the city over the years for quite some time. We, as you know, our schools are now at approximately 104, 110% capacity, depending on what figures you're looking at. and we are going to find ourselves having to improve and add on to some of the schools, and we may find ourselves with the need to build a new school as well. So come out and have your voices heard, and at least familiarize yourself with the plans so that you'll know what they're talking about, and so we can be prepared to respond appropriately. On Thursday, starting at 5:30 p.m., the Norwalk Housing Authority will have a fundraiser for the Lights On After School program. This fun event will be held at the Sky Zone on Martin Luther King Boulevard. Next, be aware that your last day to register to vote in Connecticut is November 1st, both online and by mail. Connecticut also has same-day voter registration under certain circumstances. You can talk to Ms. Doyle-Lyons or Mr. Wells if you have any questions, up to and including November 8th, Election Day. The most important thing, and you know, it's kind of interesting because after the ceremony over at Lockwood Matthews Mansion, I came back into City Hall, and there was a man who left the ceremony, became a citizen. Three people that were sworn in and took the oath of allegiance to the Constitution today came here to City Hall to register to vote. And so they're excited about their opportunity to vote. I know most people in this room are probably good, loyal voters. Unfortunately, we find that many times the voter turnout is very, very low. And I think we need to do everything we can to increase that. But so remember to vote. That's the most important thing. Town Clerk's office will be open on special hours Saturday, November 5th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. for absentee ballot voting. Today, after lunch, I went over to the health department and I got my flu shot. So, no, it didn't hurt at all. And they told me I had to get the extra powerful one. It is flu season, so be sure to go out and get your flu shot. They are available at the Norwalk Health Department and at most local pharmacies, and it's really, really important. And then coming soon to a media outlet near you, we will be announcing the date and location for the 2017 Mayor's Ball. That's all I have. Mr. Council President, Mr. Kimmel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under council business, one item I'd like to stress, believe it or not, we're on the we're close to November, and the budget season is already begun, and the departments will be submitting their proposed operating budgets for the 17-18 fiscal year sometime in December. My recommendation is that those committee chairs where those committees which have a fairly decent sized operating budget request each year, that they have those requests should be on the agendas for their November meetings, so that the committees and possibly the full council has some idea what's going on early on in the budget process. I think it's a good idea for the committees to review the budget requests before they actually go to the finance department. I believe it's something like the deadline is December 11th, so you'll have at least one, possibly two meetings to discuss the request. In the past, I don't know what the procedure has been in recent times, but in the past, those discussions have been quite interesting, and you get a chance to talk about somewhat otherwise would appear to be detailed minor items, and you get a rationale that sheds light on a variety of things. So anyway, hope that happens in the November committee meetings. That's all I have to say. The consent calendar this month, there's no resignations or appointments. Mr. Corsello, you have the consent calendar.
Thank you. That a $15,490 special appropriation be made to increase the budgets for both police overtime expense and police state reimbursement revenue for payments received in August of 2016. That a $28,108 special appropriation be made to increase the budgets for both police overtime expense and police federal reimbursement revenue for payments received in August of 2016. That the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, be authorized to execute any and all documents necessary to accept grant funds from the Connecticut Department of Transportation in the amount of $58,950 with the City of Norwalk. The Police Department will be responsible for $19,650 with the total cost of enforcement effort totaling $78,600. The Police Chief, Thomas E. Kohalik, is authorized to execute any and all agreements, documents, instruments, and amendments as may be necessary to implement all programs through the Connecticut Department of Transportation DUI enforcement grant pursuant to such grant funding. That the purchasing agent is authorized to execute a purchase order on behalf of the Police Department to T.J. Morrison Son, Eagle Point Gun and Supply Company for its annual ammunition purchase in the amount of $29,217.33. And we should make note of the fact that the agenda actually reads annual firearm purchase. That's a Scrivener's error, and by consent, we've amended that to be ammunition. That a new pay scale for poll workers is approved, and that's the pay scale that's set forth in the backup materials which have been made available to us and the public prior to tonight's meeting. Likewise, the new pay scale for part-time office workers in the Registrar of Voters is approved, and once again, that pay scale is that set forth in the backup materials which have been provided. The report of the Claims Committee dated October 13th, 2016 is accepted and approved. A narrative on tax collections dated October 12th, 2016 is accepted and approved. Likewise, the tax collector's report dated September 30th, 2016 is accepted and approved. The Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, is authorized to enter into a contract with Midwest Microfilm and Optical Storage Systems, doing business as Midwest Microimaging of Golden Valley, Minnesota, for the digitization of the library's South Norwalk Sentinel microfilms pursuant to the specifications of bid project number 3662 for a cost not to exceed $17,600 from accounts which are noted on the agenda. The capital appropriations is authorized for reductions of accounts numbered 09167100577-CO119 and account number 09157100577-C0119 by $70,000 and $20,000 respectively. It's agreed that a special capital appropriation in the amount of $90,000 to increase the appropriations in account number 09177100577-CO119 for the Department of Public Works to renovate the Public Works workspace at City Hall. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Corsello. Are there any changes in the consent calendar? Hearing none, if you approve, please raise your hand. Okay, opposed? Abstentions? Okay, passes unanimously. I believe our next meeting, Mr. Hempstead, you have the consent calendar?
I do.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Kimmel. I'll give it right back to you on the Finance Committee, item number 7C4.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Mr. Igneri,
I'm going to recuse myself on this item.
please let the record show that Mr. Igneri is recusing himself and will be leaving the council chambers.
A resolution authorizing Mayor Harry Rilling to execute documents to secure the repayment, thank you, excuse me, of a loan in the amount of $300,000 from the City of Norwalk to the Sixth Taxing District for the purpose of paying capital expenses related to the renovation of the district's community center for the fiscal year 16-17. Now, I'd like to move the item.
Mr. Kimmel moves the item. Any discussion? Mr. Livingston.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to comment on this briefly. This represents funds to be used for the latest renovation of the Rowayton Community Center. This building dates back to about 1910. and is on the National Register of Historic Places. The money is being used essentially to preserve and maintain the building by, among other things, repairing the stonework, replacing the courtyard surface, and repairing the drainage, and otherwise making efforts to maintain the structural integrity of the building. So, very good cause.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Any further discussion? Mr. Bonifant?
Thank you. And just a question. I have no issue with the projects or the loans or anything like that, but Mr. Barron, maybe you could answer me something on this. If just say, I mean, I see an interest a principal and interest payment schedule, and I know that like typically on a home mortgage or something like that, if you wanted to have extra money and double up, you could save like the next month's interest. Could they act? Is there a prepayment penalty on this? If they found money and they want to knock this off, are they locked into that grand total of $50,000 in interest forever, no matter
No,
what happens?
there's no prepayment penalty at all.
So, like, for instance, in the first month, if they gave you to double the payment, in the end, they'd save $554 in interest over the long haul.
Yes, we would recalculate based on what they paid us.
I
there.
just wondered, no. Okay.
Sure.
In case they found money and wanted to knock
You
it
know,
off.
there is a note that I'd like to make. In your packages, I think my letter's on the front page, and then there's 90 payments on the back page. At the bottom, it actually says page 1 of 2. There is a page 2 of 2, which is the second 90 pages, or the second 90 payments. So I provided both sheets to Ms. King, and she's going to have it in the permanent record, that all 180 payments are shown in our official record. It does not change the terms on my cover page that clearly says 15 years, 180 payments. But in case you notice that there was only 90 there, the second page wasn't copied.
We have it.
They have it.
Okay, good.
Yep, it's in there. Mr. Kimball?
For the record, if my memory serves right, the interest rate that they are paying on top of they're paying basically the 1.88, which is what the city pays, which is quite low, and another 0.33 to cover the administrative costs of the city.
In the 3.5, I think it's 2.33 in total. You're
Okay.
right.
So you're dealing with less, it's roughly 2.25%. I wouldn't be in such a hurry to pay that off, I can tell you that much. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Saras?
I'm in no objection to the project either. However, for the sake of the people that watch this at home after it's over, maybe you can tell us a little bit of what kind of community services that go on at the community center for people that don't know.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be an overview, just an idea of what
Yeah, very briefly, Roe
community.
for those who are familiar with Roe
Thank you.
it's right in the center of the district, and it is basically the central meeting place, and probably the only real meeting place for citizens in the community. And there are activities virtually every day, I would say. I mean, certainly not, there are exceptions, but for example, I'm trying to schedule a meeting for tomorrow, and I had to do it a month in advance, more than a month, and to get a meeting time. But the bottom line is it's used, the building itself is used by the community for meetings and workshops and various activities. You also have the library is there, the community library, and there's various children and family activities going on there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify. Opposed, abstentions, so carries. Mr. Igneri can return because he has the next item.
It is 35.
Carried unanimously.
It was defeated, John, sorry.
Sorry, I tried.
Mr. Livingston responsible.
So now we're on to item 7D1. Mr. Igneri.
This is the item that was tabled from the last meeting. It is item number 1, resolve that the Honorable Mayor Harry W. Rilling is hereby authorized to sign the agreement entitled Master Municipal Agreement for Right-of-Way Projects with the State of Connecticut in accordance with the letter dated June 27th, 2014. I'd like to say that this is not a new agreement. This is a renewal of an agreement that's been in place for some 10 years, and it's worked. It does simplify the process. Also, we, the Common Council, have to approve each project. Project isn't decided by the state. There are other cities, well, I should also say, it also would have to approve, the council will also have to approve any taking of property. Other cities who have used this, such as Stanford, have commented that it works, it simplifies the whole process. So with that, I hope everyone will vote for it. Now, I know there are a number of questions from council, so I have asked Attorney Diane Bells-Jacobson to join us. I believe she's there.
Ms. Jacobson, would you please come down to the podium?
And as she's making her way down here, I'd like to thank her because of the extra effort she put into being here tonight. Oh, great. We also have Mr. Schumento here from the DPW to answer any questions if we need them.
Good evening. My name is Robert W. Ike. I'm a supervising property agent with the State of Connecticut, Department of Transportation Division Rights of Way. As indicated, the Master Municipal Agreement came out of the lien process with the State of Connecticut, from the Governor's Office to the Department of Transportation. Essentially, the present system, if you don't sign MMA, is that we would have, if you have a project that has federal money, 80% federal, 10% state, 10% town for the right-of-way, or under the federal local bridge program, 80% federal, 20% town, you would do an individual agreement for every project. The Master Municipal Agreement is good for 10 years, and you don't have to do an individual agreement for every time you have a project for the next 10 years. The authorization will be by a PAL. So, for instance, East Avenue, Project 102-297. We have not been able to move forward with that project because the city has never signed the old agreement. Now we have the Master Municipal Agreement. If you approve the Master Municipal Agreement, we will send a PAL to the mayor. We will send a PAL to the mayor, which will authorize, it'll spell out the cost of the right-of-way, what the city's responsibility is as far as their percentage, and what the state's is, and what the federal government's is. The mayor signs that, and we move ahead. No longer will you have to have an individual agreement every time you have a DOT project with federal money here in the city of Norwalk. And so far, 113 towns have signed the Master Municipal Agreement. In the event if you don't sign the Master Municipal Agreement, we will have to hearken back to the old system. But the state does not want to utilize the old system. We desire to use the Master Municipal Agreement. It streamlines the process. It streamlines the time. None of the rules relative to property acquisition change. Everything stays the same. All this does is eliminate the need for an individual agreement every time you have a DOT project for the next 10 years. I'll be willing to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Sarasis.
We had a very nice discussion outside.
Yes, sir.
And I expressed the fears of many people that it would expedite property being taken quicker.
No, sir, no, it doesn't.
I just would like you to explain what you explained to me in the hallway in here,
The process,
because it was very informative.
the process is still the same. If, for the East Avenue project, if you sign the Master Municipal Agreement, then we'll send the PAL to you. If you don't sign the Master Municipal Agreement, we'll send the old-fashioned agreement that you've utilized for the past years. The right-of-way acquisition process cannot start until either you sign the Master Municipal Agreement or you sign the old agreement. The process stays the same. We still will send the official letter of intent to acquire to each property owner. We will still either appraise the property, make the offer to the property owner, negotiate with the owner, and if the owner is not willing to accept the state's offer, we're not able to reach an agreement with them, we'll acquire the property under state's power of eminent domain. The property owner, once we take title to the needed property right, property owner will have 6 months from the notice of condemnation to file an appeal and go before the trial referee to decide the final compensation. State will have title, will be acting as an agent for the city, or the city can opt to do the right-of-way themselves. Well, most towns and cities request the state, because we have the expertise, we're the real estate professionals, undertake the right-of-way acquisition activities. Acquisition process does not change on an MMA. Property owners are afforded all their rights on a Uniform Act.
Mr. Livingston.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. If you can confirm a couple things I think I read in the agreement. First, I think this may be obvious, but I want to just confirm it, that this agreement and the PAL only applies to projects that are specifically approved by the council, right? So
Exactly.
if we don't want a project, we don't sign nothing.
Exactly,
There's no relevance.
exactly. And that's even outside of either the right-of-way agreement or the MMA. Anytime there's a municipal project, the town has to support the project before it moves forward. So if the town doesn't send a letter of support, say it's a local road project, if the town doesn't, you can't get design approval to move ahead unless the town supports the project.
Okay, thank you. And the second question, if you can just confirm that the city has the right to cancel projects, a specific project ongoing without DOT approval if there's a problem. But we felt we'd have to pay back any.
Yes, sir.
funds, but
Yes.
we could do it if we want.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Ms. Bowman, I'm sorry, I skipped over you. You were
Does he
next.
mean I'm sorry, Ms. Wilson, does that mean after we've already approved it? Okay.
Ms. Bowman?
Well, first I'm hearing something different from what I've been hearing, which is there is an option. So we don't have to sign it.
No, you don't.
Okay, so that's something different than what I've been hearing. I think I'm done with that. Thank you.
Okay. Further questions? Mr. Casella?
You made reference to PAL, that's the project authorization.
Yes, sir.
He answered.
Yes, sir. So you can sign the master municipal agreement, and we can send the PAL to the town. So if the town or the city doesn't execute the PAL, then we still can't move ahead. That's the vehicle to move ahead is the PAL. The master municipal agreement takes away the old style of doing the agreements, but the PAL is the thing that authorizes the state to move ahead.
Thank you.
Further questions?
I say, just in case anybody wants it, the PAL, find on page 3 of the agreement, and it's talked about pages 3 to 5.
Mr. Hempstead?
Yeah, I got a couple. Hello, Mr. Ike, how are you?
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to figure out, so when we sign this PAL, because I'm hearing two different things, I want to make sure I'm clear. One was the person just said it goes project by project, and there's a form letter that you have with this, but the other one says this is good for 10 years, and all you have to do is send it to the mayor. So
when the mayor gets the PAL, say you sign the master municipal agreement, then we send the PAL to the mayor. The mayor still has to be authorized by the council to sign the PAL. I don't think there's any municipality that just gives the first elected official power just to willy-nilly sign any document. So the mayor would still, I think by your charter, the mayor would still have to come back, get authorization to sign the PAL.
Well, okay.
Ms. Jacobson, did you want to?
Mr. Jacobson, can you clarify that? Because in the document, it says it just sends the mayor for signature. So.
Right, but I don't know what your authority here is in the city of Norwalk for the mayor to sign documents.
Process is it would go through the council authorizing me to sign.
Exactly.
Asking our assistant corporation counsel or corporation counsel, either one, then even before this PAL could be signed by the mayor, it has to come back to the council for approval, for him to authorize the signature? I'm trying to figure out if we authorize the PAL document for 10 years, it says.
No. The MMA is what's authorized for 10 years. The master municipal agreement is authorized for 10 years. Every time there's a project in the next 10 years, before we can start the right-of-way, we're going to send a PAL to the mayor, the first elected official, for his or her signature. How you approve them signing the PAL is up to the city.
That's why I want to ask our corporation counsel for the record.
So the project and the PAL would come back to the city, to the council.
Okay. So the council has to do formally authorizing the mayor to execute a PAL.
Yes, and in addition to that, we still have to, or the council still has to authorize
Funding.
the individual contracts for the project itself.
City money.
It's just the way it's worded in here. It seems like this is one.
Well, there's also city funds available.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Well,
I know it's different.
so I can't spend 20,000 or 20% of the money for a project.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
But the second part, well, there's a couple of them. Once the PAL is authorized by the council, signed by the mayor, goes back, it seems that the PAL gives the state pretty much a little bit wide berth and getting additional properties if needed.
No. There is no, we are only, the town hires a consultant who designs a project. The consultant has a list of properties, and there'll be a public hearing process. We can only acquire, the Commissioner of Transportation only has authority to acquire what's needed for highway purposes. We can't acquire any additional properties just to be acquiring them. So whatever consultant you hire to design the project, they're gonna have what's known as the schedule of owners. That's gonna list all the properties that are impacted. The PAL only authorizes us to impact those properties.
Go back to that, no eminent domain exists within your power underneath this particular one unless.
No, this is what happens. Let me be honest with you. You sign the MMA, that's good for 10 years. If you ask the state to undertake the right-of-way on a municipal project, once you sign the PAL, we then have full authority. If we cannot reach an agreement with a property owner and the project is federally funded, we do not have to come back to the city to get permission to condemn. We will go ahead, the regular right-of-way process will be in place. Once you sign the PAL, you've authorized the state of Connecticut as to acquire the right-of-way on behalf of the city of Norwalk.
But just to confirm, you did say a minute ago that we could cancel.
If you so desire, if you so desire, you can write into the commissioner and say, we want to stop the project.
Mr. Hempstead?
That's right, yeah, because I have a couple. Is there any penalties associated with, for a cause that the city and the project either doesn't perform according to the state? You have certain ways of resolving that issue underneath that. You feel you've inspected a work that the city has contracted for that involves state money, you're not happy with the work, you're sending out letters of correction or adjustments.
Well,
Are there any penalties associated?
I'm in the real estate. I'm not in part of the construction inspection.
Okay.
And the city's already signed the construction MMA and the engineering MMA. The only one that hasn't been signed by the city is the right-of-way.
All right. Are we bound by their, it was attachments, so I'm asking, there's a code of ethics from the state. If you sign the PAL, then are this body and the city obligated to follow the state ethics standard?
If you're doing the right-of-way, yes, you are. If we're doing the right-of-way, the state of Connecticut is. See, once if you send a letter saying, we request the state of Connecticut take on the right-of-way activities, you've taken yourself out of the right-of-way acquisition process. The city has. If the city opts to take on the right-of-way acquisition themselves, an agent from my office will supervise the city. Once you do your appraisals, you'll send it to us to review and approve. We send them back to you with you're authorized to make an amount at this amount, and then the city takes care of all the right-of-way on their own. Then we reimburse you once you present proof of payment for, say, title searching, appraisals, negotiations, and closing. We will reimburse you for those activities. But if you ask us to do the right-of-way, once you sign that PAL, we take over.
So there's no mixing, the city has its own ethics code and the state has their own.
Exactly.
Until I read these things, right? Unfortunately, I guess to some people.
You all set?
Okay.
For Mr. Sims.
Yes, thank you. My question to you is, on the properties that you use eminent domain on, once those projects are completed, do you actually revert back and give the property back to the city or back to the homeowners? Or
Well, most acquisitions for East Avenue, to my knowledge, there's no total take or right to remove buildings. There's either partial takes or easements. So there's nothing to give back to the property owner. And if there was a total acquisition, we keep if there's any excess property, it's kept by the state. But for the East Avenue, and there's another local bridge project, there are no total acquisitions. So there's nothing to go back to the property owner. It's either a partial take or an easement, or temporary rights, right to grade, right to reconstruct driveway. So there is nothing to go back to the property owner.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bonifant?
Oh, thank you. Thanks for your candor. I appreciate, pretty straight answers.
Yes, sir.
We don't get that too often. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody's pretty good. But I appreciate all the information you're giving us. What's the difference between signing a general agreement like this, that's good for 10 years, and attaching the same terms to every project anyway? Other than, quote, streamlining it, and then all of a sudden something goes forward and, we go, how'd that happen? But go ahead.
There's really nothing. When this first came out, this new MMA, I was old school. I wanted to stay the old way with each individual agreement. But seeing how the MMA works, the PAL is the controlling point. Once you sign an MMA for 10 years, when we send the PAL, if you don't want to sign the PAL, the project doesn't move ahead. The PAL is what controls everything. All the MMA says is that you don't have to send an individual agreement down here to be reviewed every year by your council subcommittee, council people. It just streamlines the process. We have a 10-year master municipal agreement, and then the PAL controls everything. The PAL goes to the first elected official, not to be redundant. That person brings it here before the council. You can debate it, whether you want to authorize the mayor to sign. If you don't, the project doesn't move ahead.
Thanks.
Ms. Bowman?
Have you had any towns upset with your negotiations?
No.
No towns?
No, ma'am. Once we take, in fact, most towns and cities would prefer that the state does it right away. Because if we have to invoke eminent domain, most towns don't like to do eminent domain on their citizens. They'd rather the state take on the responsibility of the right-of-way acquisition process. When we go to the property owner, we explain that this is a municipally funded, sponsored project, sponsored by the city of Norwalk. The city has requested the state to undertake the right-of-way acquisition activities. Property owners are afforded all rights and responsibilities under the Uniform Act. And once the citizen hears that, they're fine. It's most of the right-of-way acquisitions are 80% are friendly. Only less than 20% of the people don't accept the offer, and out of that 20%, only less than 2 or 3% actually file an appeal and go to court. Most people accept the state's offer. We don't try to lowball anybody. We don't try to. That's unethical, and it's against the law. It's against the Uniform Act. We're utilizing federal funds. So we've never. I've been doing this for 32 years, and we've never had any issues.
Okay. So just clarify for me. So the corner of East Avenue was taken by.
State of Connecticut. We took three homes in the bakery.
Under.
That was under state money from the Office of Rails. That was not.
That was Office of Rails.
Yes, that was that's going to be used for future rail parking, and for future if we have projects in the area, they're going to use that for staging. Right now, the Office of Rails is working with the Norwalk Parking Authority to put up parking until such time as the state is ready to use that property for construction purposes, for parking for the train station.
And you are from which department?
I'm from the Division of Rights of Way.
Okay.
We purchased those properties.
So tell me about the rails over near where between the police station and Townhouse Gardens, which is right next to South Norwalk train station.
Yeah, Sono Gardens?
Yes.
Yes, we're utilizing 100% state funds. We are from Greenwich to New Haven. We are replacing 6 substations. So that construction you see going on behind Sono Gardens, we acquired property rights from Sono Gardens, and we're building a substation there. That's what essentially is going on.
So are you giving that back to them eventually?
Well, we didn't buy the property in total. We bought what's known as a construction easement, which is temporary. And once the job is over, we're going to release that construction easement, and that property goes back to the Sono Gardens. Vast majority of that work is being done in the state rail right of way. We only needed that property in order to build the substation. Once we're done, the parking lot, the barriers, all that's going to come out. We're going to repave that parking lot, and the citizens will be back to normal.
So what agreement was that done under?
There's no agreement. Had no city funds. It had nothing to do with the city. That's a state-sponsored project under the Office of Rails.
Because they were told that it was gonna take 2 to 3 months, and then they were told it was gonna take 2 to 3 years. So that's the type of thing that I wanna make sure that folks are protected against. You know, and knowing different things like that.
They're all set, believe me. They're all set. Yes, ma'am.
They've been,
compensated. They went to court. They got more money.
okay.
If there's any problems, they have called me. I have gone down and we have dealt with them. So once we're done, not to be redundant, we will take our barriers out. We'll regrade and repave the parking lot, put down new grass, and we'll go on our way and put that dumpster back where it was.
Okay, well, I'm good to know there's a process.
Further,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Corsello.
In the past, each project had its own right-of-way agreement.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There's going to be one master agreement.
No. There's one MMA for the next master municipal agreement for the next 10 years. Each project will have a PAL, their own PAL.
I understand that, but previously, each project had both.
No. Each project only had a right-of-way agreement.
There were no PALs?
No, they didn't. You didn't. That's the beauty of the master municipal agreement. You don't need that cumbersome right-of-way individual agreement for each project. Once you approve that, we're good for 10 years. The PAL is what will be the controlling factor for each project requiring right-of-way.
So the PAL is new. We didn't have.
Exactly. PAL is brand new.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Mr. Saras.
I have a couple parts to this. I thought Mr. Igneri said that we are renewing what's existing, so how is it new?
No, I don't mean, no disrespect to you, sir, but the master municipal agreement is brand new.
It's not something we're renewing.
No, it's not. It's brand new. You have yet to sign it.
Okay, so
You have yet to sign it.
when it was stated earlier that we're renewing what already exists.
He may have been suggesting that the MMA is taking the place of the individual agreement, the old agreement. That's what it's doing.
My next, it's not really a question, and it's theoretically based, and it might not be for you to answer, it might be for one of our attorneys to answer. But my concern is for the 20% that are unhappy. And we're talking about agreement that goes 10 years out. So I'm looking at it from a political point of view and what happens in politics. And it's not a reflection on our council now but it's a reflection on what may be happening over the next 10 years by who gets elected to sit in these seats. And my concern again is for that 20%. What happens theoretically if the council is top-heavy, that is hell-bent for development, with a controlling majority that can fulfill their politically motivated vision and basically point the finger at the state, and that way that 20%, in other words, you have a council of 15 people. If either party wins and they have a vision on how to develop the city, and you know every time that they're always going to win the vote, what protects those 20%? That's why I don't think you can answer this.
Well, the PAL does. Once you sign the MMA, if you don't want to go ahead with the project, just don't sign the PAL.
But this is why and I respect your opinion, sir, but this is why I don't know if you can answer this, because we're never going to go back and negate the PAL, because the council has become top-heavy, and they're worried about their political vision.
Okay, that's an internal to the city.
Exactly.
That's internal to the city.
But I'm bringing it up because it's something I think all of us here are obligated to think about, because you're giving us information telling us that 20% of the people are unhappy about takeovers.
But I don't think things change because of this arrangement. So,
Talk into the microphone.
because each time a project comes before you, that's a possibility that the council could support it or deny it. The MMA doesn't change how that mechanism works. Because under the old way, the individual project would come before you. Under the new way, you have the PAL coming before you.
I understand that. I still worry about the 20%. If we're all in favor of taking somebody's property, it doesn't matter how much that 20% complains, and all of a sudden they become a true minority in trying to protect what they built their whole lives to have. And maybe they just don't want to move. Maybe they don't want the money. Maybe they don't want to buy another house on the other town. No matter what happens, if we have a council that has a vision, that PAL will never be turned back. So that 20% is never going to be like heard or even like thought of.
Yeah, but
I'm
wouldn't
worried about
that would still hold true if you had a council bent in that direction, whether or not we go to the old way of doing business
Right.
or go to the PAL. Each
Right.
individual PAL will have to be approved by the council.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. So in other words, whether it's the old system or the new system, the outcome will still be the same because it's basically we're the ones that control the outcome.
Right.
Yeah.
And basically, we get away with like giving it off to the state and not taking on the burden of the blame. We get to pass the buck. We're not answering to our people that way.
Well, you can be, because as the project is designed, you have participation in the design, and it's the design of the project that determines what properties will be affected.
Just as a point of clarification, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but the master agreement provides essentially for an agreement with the state as to what the legal terms are of the agreement, which essentially will be repeated in every single agreement that would come before you in the, basically under the old
Right.
process. And now what's happening is, rather than having to have the law department every single time review the pretty much exact same terms
Exactly.
every single time and
Yes.
reread them to make sure they're the same.
Yes.
We agree, okay, we're gonna use the same term, essentially the same form contract. What's before you every time is the PAL, which is essentially a summary of the substantive terms for the project. Is that-
Exactly. Exactly.
So bottom line is, you're essentially voting on each project as you have in the past. The only thing that you're not going over is the boilerplate legal terms,
Yes.
which you wouldn't be looking at anyways because they're the same every single time.
Exactly.
And that's it's streamlining the process because it's allowing law departments throughout the state of Connecticut to not have to read an entire cumbersome agreement, rather just reading a summary of terms, which essentially expedites the process for everybody. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it is. That's exactly right.
And I think the other part of it is, they're not negotiable terms, because we're accepting federal money.
Right.
And we're accepting state money.
Right.
So with that, there are certain terms and conditions that the state's not going to negotiate with us. When we have a grant agreement, it's the terms that are set out in the MMA. It's the same. But we don't negotiate the terms of a grant agreement. If we want this $3 million, this is what you have to take.
And what happens is, at the preliminary design activities, when the project is city has a sponsored project, if the city does not want to send a letter of support to the Commissioner of Transportation for the project won't happen. You can't get design approval unless, in the design approval package that goes to the Federal Highway Administration, they have to have a letter of support from the city of Norwalk. If you don't want the project, once you get the design, you see the design that your consultants come up with, if you think it's too much of an impact on your citizens, you can vote not to go ahead with the project.
And one last point of clarification, is it fair to say that a lot of times, especially in your department, you're taking small pieces of people's properties, and the property owners are more than happy to have the state take them because essentially they're getting paid for something that they're not getting any real use out of. So if you have, most lots will have some surplus land. Even if they don't have surplus land, it doesn't matter, the state still could take it. And essentially somebody's getting paid for something that essentially they're not really using.
Everyone is due just compensation.
But he's telling us that 20% aren't happy.
Well, I'm saying to you, sir, that all I'm saying is some people are not going to accept the offer. Period. Some people are not going to accept the offer.
And there's some lawyers out there who also tell people, I think I can get you more money. And, for whatever it's worth.
Right.
We just had a discussion at the Bar Association that I moderated on eminent domain last month. And, there's times where people are asking for 7-8 times what their property is worth, for whatever it's worth. So are people really unhappy, or are they just trying to get more money? And the examples of the project in West Haven, for example, that's, and there's others out there right now in the news where that's happening as well, for whatever it's worth.
Ms. Bowman?
Okay, I want to make sure so if we don't sign, we can still get federal funding, we just have to do the whole process ourselves.
No. If you don't sign the old agreement, if you say you don't want to sign the master municipal agreement, we go harken back to the old right-of-way agreement. Because you've already signed,
But you can still get funding, so it does, that doesn't.
you don't get any funding unless you sign some kind of agreement.
But we can sign the old one and still get funding.
And still get funding, yes.
So then my next question is, and then we can also terminate this agreement at any time, correct? Before the 10 years is up? If we sign it, don't like it?
If you don't, the key here is if you don't sign the PAL, the project doesn't move ahead.
Okay, which leads me to my next question. If we don't sign the PAL though, then after signing the agreement, then they cannot get the funding.
If you sign the master agreement and the council votes not to sign the PAL, the project is dead.
The project is dead. Okay, so that's what I'm asking. So then the other piece is if we sign it and we, for whatever reason, we're not happy with it before the 10 years is up, can we terminate the agreement?
You can terminate the PAL.
You can't terminate this with.
Once you sign the master municipal agreements, it's in effect. If the project gets going, you can say, as the gentleman asked earlier, if the project gets going and the city says we no longer want to do the project, but the city may be responsible for any costs that have been occurred to that point in time. Or the city can take on the right-of-way activities themselves, and the state is out of it. You'd be responsible for doing the title search, not to be redundant, the appraisals, negotiations, and the closings, and you'd be reimbursed for those activities. You submit the documents to us to review. If everything is in as it's supposed to be, we will then certify to the Federal Highway Administration, and they'll release the construction money. Federal projects, they're funded three ways. Preliminary engineering is first, then it's the right-of-way. If there's right-of-way involved, then there's construction. That's at the end. But the feds will not release the construction money unless all the right-of-way is in place and all the permits are in place. The permits are required.
Ms. Maggio.
Hi, thank you. I just was wondering if you can elaborate on something you stated earlier. You were speaking specifically about East Avenue and said without this agreement signed, you haven't been able to move further.
Right. The city would not sign the old right-of-way agreement. So we have design approval. All we don't have is the money in place. Is because the city would never sign the right-of-way agreement, so we can't move ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. Corsello.
This has been very helpful to me. If I understand what you're saying is, in the past, each project had a right-of-way agreement.
Yes, sir.
And basically, the essential terms were always, the boilerplate language was always the same.
Yes, sir.
And the only essential terms that were unique to each project are what now is going to be contained in the PAL.
Exactly.
And the boilerplate language is going to be out of the equation, so it's going to streamline the process.
Yes, sir.
So materially, nothing's really changing.
Exactly. Other than you don't have the old right-of-way agreement.
Exactly. Thank you.
Further discussion, Mr. Hempstead.
If the municipality, I got two more questions, sorry. First of all, I've had dealings with you, Mr. Reich, before, and I will just tell this council, they're good, it's business stuff from the company I work for, that you always got a straight answer from this guy, no nonsense, but he's very helpful with every one of his projects. I'm just saying, I'll speak for his personal integrity, speaking before us tonight. Having said that, if the municipality decides it wants to do the right-of-way taking, and then gets partially down the process, or for whatever reason decides, you know what, we better let the state take over, is that a new PAL? Or
yes, sir. That would be a new PAL, yes, sir.
Is there any penalties, or do the city give up any rights by doing that method? In other words,
it'll be see, I don't know how far down the city has gotten. Say the city has done all the title searches. The city's going to want to be reimbursed for those costs.
Right.
Say the city's done all the appraisals. The city's going to want to be reimbursed for all those costs. So generally, it's not good if the city decides to do the right of way, then the city does the right of way. If the state does the right of way, then the state does the right of way. We don't jump ships midstream.
all right. The reason I ask this is because the East Avenue one has been the bone of contention for a long time for a variety of reasons, and I think So in this case, the city could take upon its own, we're gonna handle the right-of-ways.
Yes, sir, you can send a letter and say, we're gonna handle it.
I think it answers Mr. Thrash's concerns too, about, how does government work and, but that's the story of everything.
Yeah, I know.
Majority rules.
There's a lot of property impacts on there, let me just warn you.
Yeah.
Mr. Livingston?
That's all right. My question's been answered.
No,
Yes.
I just want, for the first point, I had some concerns that were answered very well tonight. I know the old process, even a little more convoluted, because I know we used to have sometimes do several separate resolutions to get one of these things passed from one project. State would kick it back and say, no, you gotta redo this. Does simplify things, and I think because each project has to be approved, I think that is the safeguard that we're all concerned about. It's here, I think, and I think tonight was very fruitful and beneficiary having Mr. Ike and Diane answering the questions tonight.
Ms. Bowman?
Does anyone know, Bruce or Corporation Council, what are the things in the East Avenue right-of-way document that are, what is the reason that we have not signed it?
I don't know that.
The East Avenue right-of-way.
Our resident expert.
Oh, that's previous, that's how.
The East Avenue right-of-way project, is a city project, just for the East Avenue. It is under design, and until we get the final design, we get it to the state under our design program, and the council, the consultant that's doing that, and then we would initiate the agreement with the state, the MMA, through the PAL, to do the negotiations and the plans and the appraisals for each of the easements that we have to take along East Avenue. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the bridge or the property taking that they were talking about earlier for the staging area of the bridge.
So it's not done because we're not finished. It's just not done because we're not finished.
We're not finished with the final design.
Okay. So this wouldn't necessarily expedite it or anything. It's just not. We're not done with it.
No.
Okay.
Further discussion? Mr. Bonifant?
Thank you. The only part, something's bothering me here. You're involved with the Walk Bridge project too, with acquiring properties back there, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, from what you're saying is that people are allowed to get their properties back. As you asked Ms. Bowman and Mr. Sims over there, you answered their question. People can get their properties back, but I asked Mr.
No, I never said people can get their properties back.
He said no.
Once, most acquisitions are either partial takes or easements. In the case of the Walk Bridge, we're acquiring properties in total, significant number of properties in total. Property owners will not get those properties back.
Even when you're done with the project?
Even when we're done with the project.
No use for the area anymore?
Well, you won't be, there's not any, see, you gotta remember, the Commissioner of Transportation can only acquire what's necessary for transportation purposes. All those projects will be used for the physical Walk Bridge. So there is nothing to give back to the people.
Well, after the project is built and you take back the construction equipment, you're sitting on an empty lot and the guy can't get his property back?
What happens is, if the property is deemed excess to the needs of the railroad system, then it's deemed excess, and there's a statutory requirement for the release of excess property. But to my knowledge, there is no excess property associated with the Walk Bridge at this time. That will not be determined until after the project is completed.
Okay, thanks.
But I think what you're talking about is a construction easement situation where there was an easement only for
Right.
construction purposes.
Right. If it's a construction easement, yes, and we're done, similar to Sono Gardens, when we're done, we acquired a construction easement. Once we're done, we're gonna take up our barrier, repave and replant, and the property goes back to the property owners. But if you're talking about a total acquisition of a property, where the state takes the fee to the entire property, we have not yet determined if there's gonna be any excess property. Everything is gonna be needed for the Walk Bridge.
And Rich, furthermore, to answer your question, if they make a determination now, they're gonna take simple to the property, and at a later date, there is some excess left over. 10 years later, the property owner they took it from doesn't have like a right of first refusal.
Right,
It's
it's statutory. It's statutory.
Yeah, so once the state takes it, even if there is some excess, when they take fee simple to a property, meaning they take total ownership of it, then there's no like right of first refusal for that property owner to get any part of it back, to answer your question. That's a state process, nothing to do with the city.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Sims?
Yes, my question here also with the Walk Bridge as well as with Sono Gardens as well as with East Avenue Bridge. Now, are any of those properties where you're gonna, you're using the acquisition where you're taking the property totally forever, or are you just using the easement or the partial?
There is some properties that are gonna be construction easements, where we temporarily take either a portion or all the property just for construction purposes. Once the project is done and we release that construction easement, that goes back to the property owner. But generally, a construction easement is either vacant land or it might be a portion of an improved property. If we acquire the property in total, for some of the properties on the Walk Bridge, we are going to be using them for construction purposes. But once the walk is done, and if those properties are deemed excess, they will then be they will be put back out for public sale through the statutory process. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Thank you. That did clarify it for me.
Mr. Livingston and Mr. Sarasas?
Thank you. I just want to go back and clarify something, because we've been talking about the East Avenue project a little bit, and I want to just confirm what I think I'm hearing, which is this agreement is really not affecting the East Avenue project. What I'm hearing is that if we sign the agreement, well, assuming that the city, and by city I mean the council, approves the project, and Mr. Cemento and his team come up with the plan, and they want to move forward with it, if they sign it, if they want to do that today without this agreement, they have to go through a separate agreement. If they do it under this agreement, you would sign a PAL, but basically the end result's the same.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we sent that old agreement to the city years ago. City never executed it.
Right. So it's really, this doesn't change.
No, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Sarasas?
I'm going to go back to what Mr. Bonifant was talking about, because I have gotten calls. The taking of the IMAX Theater, which is an asset to the city, is that an easement?
Oh, no. That's and I don't want to talk out of turn, but that'll be actual fee acquisition.
So
Exactly.
So we're losing an asset that helps the city, and we are not going to get that property back.
I don't want to speak
Excuse
on.
me, if I may interject, we've had some preliminary discussions with the DOT. At this point, we don't know the manner in which the DOT, if there is going to be any taking there, will take it. For example, whether it would be an easement or whether it would be a fee simple acquisition.
Not going to be fee simple.
But he just said it. He just said it was going to be a permanent acquisition.
That's not accurate.
It's not accurate.
Those negotiations and talks are still going on with the city.
Well,
Okay, let me say that.
It's a different.
Okay,
yeah,
right.
it-
We had a meeting last week.
Right.
And we ironed out a lot of the wrinkles regarding that. So as of right now, it's not going to be a fee simple.
And at some point, I will report to the council with regard to all issues pertaining to the Walk Bridge project.
And now, is the Walk Bridge gonna be under this MMA?
No, the Walk Bridge project is funded with, the right-of-way is funded with 100% FTA funds. There are no city funds involved with the Walk Bridge.
Any further discussion? Further questions? Seeing none, Mr. Igneri has moved the item.
Mr. Mayor, can I call for a roll call vote?
Mr. Kides calls for a roll call vote. Ms. King?
Mr. Bonifant?
No.
Mr. Corsello?
Yes.
Mr. Hempstead?
Yes.
Mr. Kimmel?
Yes.
Mr. Sacchinelli?
Yes.
Ms. Melendez?
Yes.
Mr. Sarasas?
I'm going to pass for now. Come back to me.
Ms. Bowman?
Abstain.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Mr. Kides?
Yes.
Ms. Maggio?
Yes.
Ms. O'Toole Durko?
Yes.
Mr. Igneri?
Yes.
Mr. Livingston?
Yes.
Back to Mr. Sarasas?
I abstain.
You have 1 no. 12 yes. Am I right? No.
No, it can't be.
11 yes.
That'd be 11 yes.
11 yes, 1 no, 2 abstentions.
Okay, the motion carries.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Kimmel? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hempstead?
Mario indicated something, I was just going to ask the council president. I think we're getting asked a lot of questions about the walk bridge, and I understand why, because it's a pretty huge impact. Could we get on the council agendas a period after the meeting, so like executive session or something, where we go through negotiations?
I know you've been busy with your work and being dragged in every direction, but a few meetings ago, we had agreed that we would have, I guess once a month, or as needed, but once a month, we would have exactly what you're talking about. Okay? You're absolutely right, and we did address that, and I expect we'll have one at some point in November.
Yeah, I will be in touch with leadership, and I will schedule an executive session with the council. As you know, we hired outside counsel at our last meeting, and they're in the process of providing confidential opinion from me as to provide, what the process is. It's not so easy to at least for the city, with everything, with all the impacts. So we'll have that discussion, and it may be at an executive session a different night of your regular meeting, just to give ourselves enough time. It's really a scheduling issue at this point. We'll hopefully have it in the next 30 days.
And I would also recommend that we have a brief overview for the first meeting, because a lot of the issues regarding the walk bridge have not even been decided yet. They're still in the process. I describe it as having a tiger by the tail and getting it back into the cage. It's not as easy as you might think. It's going to take, I'd be surprised if it was on schedule, so. Mr. Igneri.
Seeing no other business, I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye. Make that parking authority meeting?
I have it on my schedule, I told you a couple weeks ago I had it on.